Welcome to Force Pro Sports Laserforce podcast with your host, Mr. Mischief.
Welcome back, Laserforce players, to Force Pro Sports. Laser tag is the greatest sport of our modern era. Our dream is to see players get paid, team sponsors, and lives transformed throughout the incredible Laserforce community. My codename is Mr. Mischief. I'm a laser tag sports analyst who aims to make laser tag presentable and exciting for all. Today, I am joined by the one and only Rusty from Brisbane, Australia. He boasts 8,913 missions. That is the most missions in the world as of this recording. He's a multi-time world champion, and he's here today to let me interview him. Welcome on, Rusty.
Hello, thank you.
We
good
got
intro, by the way. That was a good. I didn't realize you would have checked how many games I've played.
I did. You're still at the top.
Not for long. Someone will catch me. But yes, thank you.
There's a few people that are rapidly climbing. I got a quick question to start today, and we got a lot to cover, so I want to just jump right in.
Mm-hmm.
Today's quick question is sponsored by Relics Merch. Visit Relics Merch to buy some awesome Laserforce swag. The link's at the bottom here. The Babe asks, what is one piece of advice you'd give yourself when you were just starting laser tag?
Oh, geez. You got to soak it all in, the good and the bad, right? Like getting feedback from people who you may or may not think are better than you, depending on where you're at in your career. If you're not open to getting feedback and being told what you're doing well and what you're not doing well, then you're going to be way behind in terms of your development. Is probably my only advice to that. Like, you got to be a sponge. You got to watch how other people are playing, and if someone can add some value, don't dismiss it. And hey, there might even be someone who you may consider not as good, and it might be a cracking idea. So you really have to just be open to all feedback. Is probably what I would say. Based on that question.
I love that. It's a humble answer. When you're not humble, you can often miss valuable information from the most unlikely of places.
Yes, couldn't have said it better myself. There you go.
Absolutely. Well, that's why they pay me the big bucks, right?
I need a busting bench. Yeah.
So if you want to submit a question for one of our guests to answer, leave a comment below. We also invite you to support the channel through our Patreon. One half of all donations are given to the National Association of People Against Bullying. So if you want to help support that cause, the Laserforce is trying to rally behind that. So I wanted to start by sharing a couple stories with you, Rusty.
Mm-hmm.
I met you in 2015. The scene had come out to Loveland, Colorado. I don't think really
almost 10 years ago.
That's right. I don't think really any of you had played in Loveland except for the St. George team. We were brand new. And, I was getting to know all the players. And there was this player, Death to All from Detroit. He was like showing me some people. He pulls me aside and he points at you and he says, "That's Rusty. He's the greatest player in the world." And that's how I know you. And that's how many people know you. And I was just curious, first off the bat, like, what do you think of that way people view you, that title? Do you agree?
Yeah,
disagree?
it's weird. Well, I think it's, people's opinion, right? Like, at the end of the day, I'm not going to run around and tell everybody I think I'm the best or the second best or the worst. I think I just try and play every game as good as I can to the best of my ability. And sometimes that works out really well. Sometimes I'll do some really cool stuff. And other times it just doesn't work out, right? It's not meant to be. And look, it's a pretty humbling title, I suppose, to be bestowed on anybody if you're playing a sport that you're passionate about. If people think you're a really good player, I'll never knock back a compliment. But I think as I've gotten older, and I remember some of the stuff I may have been able to do in my sort of late 20s, early 30s, and then now I'm in my early 40s, Sometimes I don't know. Maybe it isn't justified because I don't think I can do some of the stuff I used to do as well as I could have, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I suppose starting off the way I did with my tournaments and whatnot to be considered, arguably the best player was not on my radar. So yeah, it's very cool to be looked at in that context for sure.
Definitely. And I don't know that everyone in the world shares that opinion, but and you always get that with every sport. People measure players by different metrics. Some people are biased. They don't want a player who's not from their home team to be the best in the world.
Yeah,
But I've definitely heard it from a bunch of people. And the second thing I wanted to say, kind of a story, is, I wanted to thank you. I guess you didn't do anything in particular for me. You just played in Nats 23, and I was able to observe you. I specifically wanted to soak up a little of what does Rusty bring to the table. Your gameplay helped change the way I played in Nats 24. I'm not going to say that MVP is everything. I've always been I've ranked pretty low with my MVP over the years, and I figured for this tournament coming up, I would play a more supporting role for players who would deal more of the game input, my commander and scouts. But turns out I walked away with the highest MVP in Nats history after this last tournament. And I think part of it is I pulled from you. I'm going to use two words. I'm going to use aggressiveness and hunger in my gameplay. I wanted to thank you for that. You did help me a lot with my heavy play, and I'm just curious what you think of that when I say that's how I saw your gameplay.
Well, I can relate to that because back in my first tournament, 2000, the year 2000, 25 years ago was my first Nats. Back then we used to do Masters tournaments. So my first ever Nats, the first thing was always the Masters tournament, which was always played overnight, 30, 40 people, and then they'd play the SM5 tournament during the week. And I was doing very badly for the first half. Like, I had people from Wellington who I was playing with at the time, which we can talk about later, who, I was arguably better than them. And they're like, what is going on? I'm beating you. I'm ahead of you. And it was just before the last game of the break. And I saw a guy called Tragedy run past it, and he had bent over. Like, he'd bent over halfway. And I was like, that's interesting. But I worked out it was really hard to hit him because he had bent over. So I stole that straight away. And, I can't remember exactly what it would have been, but the second half of that tournament was just night and day. I ended up finishing single digits in my first Masters tournament from memory, or very close to it, after having a horrible first half, right? So I think that's partly, my first answer. If you're not willing to look out there and see what someone's doing potentially better than you and being willing to accept that, hey, somebody is doing something that I can pick up and learn from, that's half the battle. If you watch me, and those are the two things that you took away, I think, again, I would probably take that as a compliment because, I say this to everybody. I don't care if I'm playing against a birthday party, not that I do that anymore anyway, or I'm playing a Nats final. I'm playing 100%. I'm going for resets. I'm being aggressive. I'm really putting in the hard yards to the point where I'm cooked and can't walk for 4 days after the tournament's finished, right? So, that resonates with me so much, and it's cool that you could actually reflect on that and go, hey, I pulled something out of that. So that was cool.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hopefully that answers your question.
It does. Oh yeah. I mean, it sounds so simple, but it's just effort. You are a player who never doesn't push for the 9.5 feet to get the reset, get the missile off on a person. And I think I told you this. I was astounded. Like, you were about to go into finals against US West, and you had to play Auckland first, but they forfeited their game because there was a sick player on the team, right? So you played a couple for fun games before you're going to play finals, and you played this ammo carrier that went off for I think 8 or 9K. And I was like, why aren't you saving your energy? What are you doing? And you're like, you said I think I can't shut it off. This is how I play.
I have to try. Yeah, well, I just turn into it's an autopilot thing.
Mm.
Like, you run into a wall and you come out and you're bleeding, but then you didn't think you hit the wall that hard, and you just keep going. Like, you know what I mean? It just ends up being I guess it is a zone I just get into, and I'm playing. I'll give it 110% and see where we land. I mean, look, yeah, and I probably should have taken it easy, but I can't. So that's why getting old sucks, man. It's if it was in my late 20s, it wouldn't have mattered so much, but I probably should have taken my foot off the gas a little. But I just can't. It's impossible. Yeah.
For sure. Hey, can we get into your history a little bit?
Sure.
So when did you start playing?
My first Laserforce game, according to I Play Laserforce, is in August 1996. So it will be coming up 29 years ago. But I would have played like on a holiday, like, if your parents are busy during school holidays, they pay for a day out where you go with other people to places, and that's how I got into Laserforce. Like, it was a day into the Wellington city. I'm from Wellington, New Zealand as well, for context. So my first game was in Wellington. So I played there. A guy called Stallion was an important part of a regular members night. So I started playing on the Wednesday nights, and we'd only have 7 or 8 people, but we'd just play Highlander and Time Warp and Tag and all sorts of other stuff, and Space Marines 4. And then Auckland opened up. That's at the top part of New Zealand, so we would go up there and play and do other things like that. But yeah, in 1999, Stallion went to a place called Newcastle in Australia with Thanatos, of all people. And they played their first, Nats in 1999. And then the following year, I went and played in Melbourne with a Wellington team, which you could probably relate it to your baptism of fire in 2015. I would have been 17, I think, when I first played, and we're playing against Brisbane people and Melbourne people. These guys are really, 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 really good. Like I said, I learned how to bend over just from watching Tragedy play, and I obviously soaked up a lot of stuff from that. But we played 30 games in that tournament, and we won 1. And we only won 1 was because one of our players got injured, and Night Owl from Melbourne got to sub in for this player, and he played heavy. And Night Owl playing heavy back in the year 2000 in Melbourne was just a force to be reckoned with. And we played another team that sort of finished quite low, and we won a game. So I would, if that hadn't happened, I would have played my first Nats. I wouldn't have even come close to winning a game of Laserforce. So yeah, that's I've been on both sides of the coin, but it's kind of like if you want to start as badly as possible in your Laserforce tournament career, I pretty much did that.
Yeah. Some people are going to feel very comforted by that you also started out as a beginner, just like everybody.
Yeah. And like when you get to play your first Nats, as you know, then you get to sort of, like you sort of you start to understand the game before you play it, and then you get sort of told how to double and how to do this, and eventually you get a little bit more confident, and to actually see proper Nats teams and how the game can be played properly, it's a bit of a mind-blowing moment, I guess.
Yeah.
Once you see how well the game can be played at a high level.
Oh, it breaks your mind open. You're like, when people when I first saw people resupplying without counting 1, 2 shoot, it blew my mind. We had no idea you could do that.
Oh yeah, it's well, yeah. I mean, that's the cool thing, because as you get better and you evolve, and I can play games with resupply games of people where we just literally don't even have to communicate.
You don't talk, yeah. You just know.
And we don't have to be together. We can be in different parts of the arena. It's just, it's cool, right? If you can actually go. So that would have been a really cool experience for you guys playing, and it's like you just stop talking. Or at least go whoever's next, and then you don't have to do the countdown. Because, man, that can be distracting if you're trying to defend and you're all counting down, like, who's coming next. And, so, no, that's definitely one of the first things you would feel comfortable and happy to learn is when you don't have to count resupply, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. So can you walk us through some of the just briefly walk us through your story a little bit? Maybe hit some of the highlights or the lowlights of maybe that 90s to like 2010 era.
Well, yeah, I probably a little bit to unpack there because I played with Wellington until 2003, I think. So I had Melbourne, Brisbane, and Brisbane was 2001, 2002, had 2 Nats actually. I did back-to-back Nats. So we flew to Texas in 2002, played against, the DKs and the Thanatoses and the...
that's cool. Was that Sugarland?
Sugarland, yes.
Yeah, okay. I've heard of that.
D&D. We played we played a master, like, I wouldn't call it a proper Masters tournament. It ended after 5 games. I think I won the first 5 games, and they just said, let's not do any more of that. And then flew back, played Auckland, dislocated my shoulder, went to hospital, got it put back in, came back, played the Masters, won the Masters in Auckland. And it was probably around there that I'm like, okay, maybe I'm getting kind of good, or at least better than what I was the first couple of years. But again, getting to play in Melbourne, soaking it all up in Brisbane, which was, the Mecca, getting to see all the Brisbane players in the 2001 Nats. And, like, if you think about just pure skill, that probably was pretty close to, in terms of just the pure quality of Brisbane people in 2001, very high level from memory. Again, like, I probably was a different player back then to where I was sort of late 2000s, early to mid 2010s. But insane. Like, I learned an enormous amount in 2001 playing in Brisbane. I think I finished 4th in the Masters there, so a big improvement year on year. And then, like I said, 2002 was Texas, Auckland. And then 2003, I moved to Brisbane. I'd like to say it was just because I wanted to grow a career or something, but I kind of went on a holiday and never left. And I played for Wellington in that year. I hadn't played enough games in Brisbane to qualify to play Nats for them, and I played for Wellington. I think we might have finished 4th from memory. It was, it's all a bit hazy. That's 22 years ago, right? Mm-hmm. But yeah, from 2005 onwards, I played with Brisbane, and that was it. Wasn't until 2010 we went to Chula Vista, which is obviously when we would have spent all those years coming over and playing quite actively until COVID kind of killed it for us.
It did for a minute.
Did you say any highlights I want to think about?
Yeah.
I mean, there was plenty. I mean, my first ever win would have been in Brisbane, playing with Brisbane, which, counted or not. I mean, we did win Texas, but again, that was me dragging a night owl and 3 people from Sugarland. I don't know how we won that, but we did quite well on that. I suppose, like, not counting the Brisbane, Melbourne, Auckland stuff, 2010 was probably a highlight because we had a really diverse team. That's where, Get Travel Insurance joke came from with Guy Next Door. I was playing with my brother. We had a couple of other people on the team who weren't necessarily great Brisbane players, but, they were solid. And this was the first Nats since 2004, I think, that Brisbane or anyone from Australia and New Zealand went. but that was the tournament we played. You don't have to show a shoulder. Right.
I've heard about this, yeah.
Chula Vista. And did you ever play in Chula Vista?
I never got to see it, no.
A very unique arena, kind of like, the second floor, the whole thing was half walls, and then there were these tall walls, probably 6 foot, where you could kind of shoot around. It's hard to explain, but that was St. George's team. They had a guy called Tiny.
Oh, I know
Tiny.
Tiny.
Guy called Tank. And he was not tiny. He was huge. He was huge, and he could shoot over the wall, the 6 foot wall, and because you don't have to show a shoulder. It was just a nightmare. And there was some funky stuff going on where people would flip the gun upside down and cover the front of the phaser. So, it was hard. It was a challenge. It was really tricky. But it was kind of cool because, everybody knew we played with the chasing rule, which was in there, but we always tried to show a shoulder. And for some reason, I guess people thought we can't play without showing a shoulder. And, all jokes aside, I'm sure plenty of people will be giving me shit like, oh, Rusty doesn't always show a shoulder, which is true, shit happens. But if I'm deliberately not doing it, I'm pretty good at just sticking my gun around the corner and shooting. So, yeah, we won that, right? So it was a pretty epic final with the Chula Vista team, and we won. And I think that was a highlight, and I think it was ultimately important because we won while not having a shoulder, right? So if we had lost that, if we actually didn't win that, then I think there would have been the argument that, hey, these guys from Australia and New Zealand only want to change the rules because they didn't win. I think there would have been a serious conversation like, oh, well, we're not going to come again unless you have to show a shot. Like it would have been drama. It would have been so winning.
I could see that.
Or not show a shoulder. We could actually say, well, we want to come again, but we want to play with showing a shoulder. And I remember at the end of that Nats, we had a couple of games where we showed a shoulder, and a few people were like, "Oh man, this feels so much better." So 2011 was Syracuse, and Sanch was there, and he's like, "Yeah, we want to host. We'll show a shoulder," and that's kind of what started the. 5 years later, we hit you guys, and it would have been 2011, 2012, 2013, 2014. So it would have been 5 years of showing a shoulder by the time it hit Loveland, and there was no. We can't be bothered showing a shoulder anymore or anything like that. It was kind of like, I think the landscape could be very different today if we hadn't won that. So I feel like our claim to fame is the fact that we took away the bias of the no showing a shoulder.
That's very interesting. Because coming in, we just assumed it had always been like that when you came in 2015. We also assumed there had always been stats, but that was very new to us.
Oh, look, I mean, I don't know if Russell will ever watch this, but yeah, the stats, LF stats is almost as good as Laserforce itself. It made a significant difference to a lot of people's lives, tracking stats and keeping an eye on things. And just, again, like, we spoke about talking to people and soaking up. Like, you can unpack plenty of stuff from looking at stats as well. If you spent the time digging around and actually knowing what you were looking for, and if you don't know, ask the questions and try and figure it out. I think we have a lot of tools that we certainly didn't have back when I started playing. I mean, they used to sit there with laptops, like printing stuff out, manually typing. Oh, insane. So Laserforce stats is a game changer. But yeah, like I said, I think things could have been very different if we didn't win that one. That would have been bad, really bad.
Okay. Would you consider that the victory you're most proud of as far as the way that you and your team played?
I mean, I feel like any win we had was a reflection of the team, right? I don't think it wouldn't have been possible with anyone missing at any one point. I think that was obviously a big deal. Winning the 2011 in Syracuse was really tough. The Syracuse team was awesome. I love I love the Syracuse Arena. It's like, after Brisbane, it's my favorite. Like, one floor, comfy carpet, lots of different angles and ways you can get to other places. It was a really cool arena to play in. So that was probably another highlight, winning that one, because they had a cracking team. Again, the 2017 Sacramento one was probably another one. They had a great team. They had a really good team. We had to play really well. Taipan, that was Taipan's first international trip. We had a bit of a roller coaster in terms of keeping people all on the same page, which, that can have its own challenges, but it's, it feels a little bit more rewarding when you win, when you've had to sort out a couple of spicy moments within your own team to keep things on track.
I remember playing against that 2017 team. When we started the Elam bracket, it was the bottom seed versus the top seed, and we got to march in against you guys. And what a lineup! The way that Brew and Tragedy were playing scouts, I think, or it would have been Tragedy Ammo, Fredo Scout, I think. Y'all, you spread out and took space so well. It was impossible to do just about anything with the way you guys controlled and communicated. It's hard to learn from games like that when you get hit so hard so repeatedly, but you do see just how a good team takes advantage of your mistakes, like every little mistakes in an internationals.
Oh yeah, and again, we didn't really have. I wouldn't have said we would have had specific places other than, you just go with your gut to attack, right? And that just comes with experience.
Exactly. You knew to spread out and not be in the same places.
A lot of people, if they get too close to get me reset. So maybe that's just because they don't want me to yell at them. I don't know. But yeah, Glader and Traj playing resupply was good. That was a solid base. And having a really good resupply it can be more important than having a really good 3-hit combo, because if you don't get your rotations right, you don't keep things on track, it can get a bit spicy if you don't have people all singing the same song, if that makes sense. So having someone with as much experience as Peter playing resupply that year was really awesome.
All right, I'm going to ask you about your biggest tournament disappointment. It's not all been first place trophies, right?
Oh, there's a few. There's a few. 2007, I had 2 nukes. I pulled one. If I pulled 2, I would have killed the ammo. We would have won the tournament. I pulled one.
That's Melbourne, right? I've heard of that.
You didn't know if you had 2 or 3 or 4. There was no LCD. So that was disappointing when I found out, if you doubled, you would have killed the medic. I was able to kill the ammo.
So was that in finals?
Wow. Absolutely, it would have game over if I double nuked, because the ammo would have died. But the ammo found the medic found, it was just, that was disappointing. Colorado, I think we could have pulled off. I won't throw anyone under the bus. I suppose, when I reflect on things, I don't, whether or not it was something I could have done better or something somebody else could have done better, I don't think necessarily about what somebody else could have done better. I just think about what I could have done better. But, for the longest time, disappointment for me was finishing second. So anywhere I finished second has probably been a disappointment. Detroit was rough. I could have walked for almost a week after that. I didn't realize how much that arena was going to kill me. And it was only because I had these weird, in my height, I'm not super tall, but I'm 6'1".
The half walls.
They're not proper half walls, because you could squat behind a half wall. They're like a 2/3 wall where you have to engage your thighs heavily. And it's like doing a wall set almost. And I played 3 practice games. I remember 3 practice games the night before we started. And I was already cooked on the Monday. I'm like, oh my goodness, what did I do to my legs? Because in Brisbane, I was so used to either squatting or standing. There was no like, you have to kind of angle yourself. It was just like up or down. Here you're like engaging. But again, that goes back to if I think that particular part of the arena was the best place for me to be, I'm still going to go there and I'm still going to do what I need to do to try and make it work. But yeah, I was absolutely gassed by the end of that. And yeah, we could have definitely done things differently in that one. And I probably could have played None Commander better. And again, I reflect on that. I had that new cancel. Should I have pulled it there? Maybe, maybe not. But then my resupply didn't see the 3 hit running up the ramp. If they'd seen him, they probably would have put him down. My nuke would have gone off, would it have changed the game? Maybe, maybe not. You know, you think about that. And then Auckland, the most recent disappointment was Auckland. And that's taking nothing away from, you know, how we lost. They deserved to win at the end of the day. But all we had to do in my mind was survive that game, because we had another crack at attacking what was actually really difficult in the morning when we came in. We lost the first match. But then I kind of figured out how I wanted to attack the red side. And all we had to do in my mind was survive that next game, because we limbed, and we would have had another crack at the match, and we potentially would have been able to attack that red side, done the same thing and maybe won. But I blame myself for that, Nats, because I should have known something crazy was coming. I should have known that we're just going to go ham and cheese and go upstairs. But Typing to Basil, like, we're going to go attack them. And then I sort of, you know, casually just ran up the ramp like he usually did to go upstairs. And Kadama was already there. And, yeah, that didn't work out very well. Obviously, Medic got absolutely pumped. And I think I've told DK this, but he, you know, when he was breaking down the game that decided it all, there's a screenshot of the scoreboard at one particular moment in time. And I was the heavy, you know, the least amount of lives outside of the medic. And when our medic was dead, I had the most lives. So again, I'm not blaming anyone else for not having enough lives. I'm blaming myself for not having, hey, team, get full, try and get as many lives as you can so we can sort of ride this out. You know, there's all these little bits and pieces that I would reflect on to know whether or not, you know, would it have made a difference? Maybe. We could have got absolutely pumped in the next match, but, you know, I'm very much sort of, could we have done things differently? Yes, I think so. So is that a disappointment? Yes, it is. But I still don't want to take anything away from, you know, the teams that have beaten us, right? Like, everyone's played as well as they could have at the time, and if we won, we won, and if we didn't, well, you know, good games to everybody else. And I feel like the tournaments we haven't won, I want to say we've been good losers about it. I don't want to think that anyone's like, oh, but, you know, they're all losers. They didn't. I made sure I shook everybody's hands and, you know, congratulated everybody that needed to be congratulated. But did I want to do that? Not really.
Well, no one wants to. That's what makes it so admirable.
Yeah, it's tough. Definitely tough. So yeah, there's been plenty of disappointments. But yeah, you've just got to enjoy the moments, right? This is very likely my last one, because my shoulder's been dislocating again. And I don't really want to roll the dice being in a different country with the shoulder popping out and, you know, travel insurance not paying for it, and I get a big giant bill. And I ultimately need to have surgery. That's the only solution to refix it. I popped it out in Auckland in 23, remember? So that's what it's popped out another 4 or 5 times since then. So I hadn't popped out for 13 years, and then after Auckland, it's popped out a few more times. So that's probably the main disappointment of recent. Is like, I know I've only got, maybe this is my last one, maybe it's not. Limited opportunities to keep playing tournaments and potentially winning them. So, yeah, I guess that could sort of segue into Brisbane. this year, and the fact that I'm very happy we're hosting. I'm very happy that we've got 8 teams. So I'm going to try and soak it up as best as I can.
Yeah, I think it's a great segue. Well, the one thing I will say is, one, I was there and you were a great sport. And if you want to see some really good tag, check out your final stand when it was just you alive versus the whole US West team. I mean, you were knocking heads together for quite a while. It was pretty epic.
Yeah.
For what it's worth.
Well, no, look, thank you. And like I said, it's like I was 99% sure we were cooked, but I still wasn't just going to go, game over. I'm going to walk around with my gun down and call it a day.
Right.
And some of the funnest games are when you can actually survive when you're up against it, and there's 3 or 4 people attacking you. You can keep them down and get resets. And like when we were upstairs, when they talk about how Odin came in and kicked us out, like we were up there for minutes. Like we were doing really well until you managed to sneak in. But I appreciate the observation that we did our best.
Oh yeah, and coming into Nats 25 this year in Brisbane, it doesn't seem like it's just you. Most of that same team is your new. Are you Team Potato, or is there a different team name for you guys?
No, there are team names. I was trying really. I didn't want the monikers of A, B, C. Right? Like I feel like each team's been built. It just makes sense, I suppose. Like the people on each team just make sense.
Sure.
Could we have made the team I'm on a little bit stronger? Yes, but that would have meant another team would have been potentially weaker, and then another team that was made just makes sense in terms of cohesion, and I think they're going to have a lot of fun as well. So everyone's got team names. I just thought I'd wait until a bit closer to announce what everyone's decided that they're getting their names called, because everyone's getting their shirts organised, right? So I thought at least wait for the shirts to come, and then it's kind of locked in.
I gotcha.
Go from there.
They're working.
I just
titles.
came up with 3 completely random names, and people were still referring to teams as A, B, and C. Which, I thought that was funny. I tried really hard to avoid that, and yet people were still, even people from Brisbane are actually talking about it. And I haven't called any team A, B, or C this entire time.
Yeah.
People are coming to their own conclusions, which is fine.
It's part of the fun. People have a hard time not making a tier list in their own head. Everyone's got an opinion. It's the fun of sports. Making calls and being right or wrong about it. But so it's not the A team, but your team seems like it's mostly the people who were with you in 23.
Yes.
But was that intentional?
Yes. Yes, I think the sharpshooters on the team. He didn't come to Auckland. He played, if we want to call it the B team, in 2018 with Taipan. So he's been around for quite a long time. He started when he was 12 or 13. Like sharpshooter was half the size of us, and I think he's taller than me now. So I mean, the team's going to be built to have some flexibility that if I'm 41 years old, I don't want to have to play 3-hit every game. I want to try and mix it up and have a bit of fun with it. But at the same time, like all of those players on the team can contribute in different ways. So we'll see how it plays out. But the only person, Troy is ultimately the person that's on another team, and then sharpshooter's coming in for him essentially is the only change.
Gotcha. And but from what they described in the Resupply podcast, the Team Orange is more. They seem like more of the younger players, the Basil Bots as they're called.
Basil Bots. And so they're not called the Basil Bots anymore. I'll save the name until the shirt's made. But the types of players. They're kind of like the anti-Basil Bots now because Basil's not on the bots.
Look,
if I was to describe our team, it's a really really good mix of experience, a bit of youth, a bit of age. I think, Sharpshooter's the second youngest. He's 25. I think Basil's like 22, 23.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm not even the oldest. JFK is the oldest. And then there's me. So it's a good mix. I suppose if we look at it like that, the non-Basilbots team, like a lot of those players, I think they started in 2018.
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe they had only been playing for about a year when the first Nats rolled around, and a couple of them played on Merc teams. So they've been around for a significant amount of time at this point. So they've got a really fun team. Screever also played in that Nats. I think he was on a hybrid team.
On the D team with the Fear Turkey.
Yeah, that's right. And they took a game off us, which I remember not fondly, but he's a cracking player.
I just saw the light go out of your eyes when you remembered that.
I'm not taking responsibility for that one. Screamer's a cracking player, but they've all, youth on their side. Absolutely. It's a very young team. They try some really funky stuff anytime they get to sort of pair up while we're playing social games. Whether or not I think that's a good idea, I'm not getting involved or giving my 2 cents as to what they should or shouldn't do. And then, the third team's, again, a mix of experience. Like some of those guys started playing in the 90s, like Scraps, Pat, and Troy. And then, the Lucy from Auckland, she's playing on the team. And, they've got another good mix of younger players that have worked at Laserforce, actually. Most of the team has actually worked at Laserforce, yeah.
I think Lucy's from the Czech Republic, actually, originally.
Yeah, no, so she played in Auckland, sorry.
She played in Auckland, but...
Yeah.
I want to share something with you. So I'm going to be doing a power rankings show with Glader and Odin's Fist. That's the plan, closer to the start of the tournament. I've got some stats here. I'm trying to figure out my projections, and I got every team's average year that the players on that team started playing. And for that Team Banana, even including Lucy, who began playing in 2018, the average year this team began playing is 1999.
There you go.
They have been around a while. Like almost all of them.
Yeah, no, they started before me, I think. 96. I think some of them were before that. Which is kind of crazy, right? If you think about it.
Yes, it is.
Which year were you born?
I was born in 96.
There you go. So I started playing when you were born.
Yes, you did.
That makes me feel very old. Very, very old. Geez. What other stats have you got cooking for that show?
Oh my gosh.
Maybe save for a surprise, because what you guys did last year in Loveland was unbelievable. It was so good.
I'm really excited to put this out. All I'll say is I'm trying to improve my formula for accurately predicting what makes teams perform well and what makes them not. My rankings predictions for the Syracuse random draw that just happened, I was very off, and it showed me I don't actually know what I'm talking about when it comes to predicting.
Well, random draws
harder to predict, of course.
Yeah, very tricky. Like when you're having random draw, I feel like as much as I, pumped up the tires on resupply, if you're playing against a really good 3-hit and you don't have a really good 3-hit, it probably doesn't matter too much how good your resupply is. You might be able to buy some time and get a few extra points and score above average in terms of your output as a resupply if you're defending a lot more, but you're probably going to die. Yeah. I guess. Well, there's my summary of it. If you get a bad matchup,
absolutely. I'm actually finding, and I'm taking the data from the last few years. I'm working on some stuff in terms of trends. When you have tournaments where you have site-locked teams that practice together, the 3-hits have, on average, less MVP, which means less game impact. than in tournaments where it's just random throw players together. And I imagine that's because when you have less structure, the three hits have more ability to run away with a game. And when it's structured, you can work the one hits into more productive roles. I'd be curious of
I
your thoughts
think,
on that.
yeah, I think. Are you talking about a properly formed team
Right,
having
that's
less
practice
MVP?
together.
Oh yeah, because I
And
mean,
the
I don't know
scouts get
when
more on a
maybe
structured team.
probably only from elimination bonus is in my mind. So like if I was to look at a game where you had two really strong free hits and two really great scouts and an awesome resupply, and that's team playing against another solid, let's say a solid team,
Mm-hmm.
I would expect to see both free hits with really good scores
Mm-hmm.
comparatively to the scouts because the medic's probably going to have died kind of quick, which might mean the three hits then die quite quickly, and then the scouts don't get to farm points off three hits, right? So as a one hit, only being able to hit someone once, like if you've only got scouts and resupplies to shoot, as opposed to a commander or a heavy who have missiles, right? You get an extra 2,500 points each. You already start the game 2,500 points ahead of the scout if you're actually good at getting missiles off, right?
Mm-hmm.
So like you might find a game where you have 9,000 for three hits, and the scouts might end up with a couple of 4K scores. Where it might be flipped though is you have one or two people that are playing exceptionally well in carrying. You might have a great commander and a great scout,
Mm-hmm.
and the scout's going to come out with significantly more because they'll be able to defend a lot more. They're going to have three hits to shoot more often, potentially get a lot more resets. If you're hunting a team, more often than not, the three hits are going to get the resets, right? And if the three hits are dead, you're still only going to get one hit as a scout. And like I said, you might get missiles as three hits as well. So there's a lot of factors, I think. A really organized team is going to probably score a lot less, but they're going to get a lot more MVP because of the elimination bonus as well.
That's a good point.
If you're going to go the full 15 minutes and score 11,000 points as a scout, you're going to probably have a truckload of three hits, and you're going to get a lot of MVP from, not necessarily eliminating, but getting the MVP points per hit, right? So you could still have a really good scout game, get 60 hits in the three hits, and not get any medic hits and still do phenomenally well, but still lose because you just did a really good job defending. You kept the three hits out. Your medic didn't get hit as much. You survived the game, but overall your team didn't win because they got more points than you. So I think a very well structured team playing really well, they're all going to do better, much better than the other team that's been eliminated or not scored. But I think it's always going to skew to the three hits and the medic who will get a boost off. Unless the scout gets lots of medic hits. That's the only variable, I think, to a scout doing really well. Sorry, I probably rambled on that. There's a lot of factors involved in that, I think, to consider.
There are. This is why people can get so into our game because I'm tempted to throw away the clock and talk about that for the next 2 hours. I don't want to get stuck on it. But no,
we could do
think
another one of these one day and unpack all of that separately. I've probably got about 10 more minutes.
Yeah, absolutely. So let me just wrap up on the Nats team then. Just after breaking down all three of those teams, like what's your guys' mentality? What are you willing to share about how you're preparing for this tournament?
Sharing. Oh, look, like I said, my preference is I don't play three hit a lot if I don't have to.
Sure.
Maybe that's partly strategically that I want to save my legs for later on in the week. I think for my team, it's about being flexible. We've got enough experience where if we try a couple of lineups and it's just not paying dividends, we we can change things around and get stuck into it. Like, I'm not going to spend 10 games practicing something during a tournament and go, oh, this isn't working, and we change. Well, we'll change really quickly. I think the non-Basil bots, I think they've got a lot of things to figure out just around, not necessarily their lineup. I think they're going to end up settling on what I would think is best for them, but I'm not going to tell them what I think unless they ask me.
Sure.
But there's just certain things that may or may not happen in a game that they just need to get better at reacting to. And then the third team, again, I think there's a good mix of experience. Like you said, 1999 is the average date. That's a very interesting stat as to when they started playing. So, they've all been around the traps, and they know what to expect. But how they decide that they want to run their lineup is going to be crucial, because I think a couple of things that they're running may or may not be in their best interest. But again, I'm going to keep things to myself unless I'm asked.
And you should. You really should.
That actually answers the question.
No, thank you. I think even just that is plenty. And I absolutely relate to not wanting to give away tons of actual, real, useful information when you're about to compete in this tournament.
Well, it's as simple as you've just got to kill the medic. If I was to summarize Laserforce, and I've said this to plenty of people, you're going to do well if you shoot more people before they shoot you.
Amazing.
And if you just happen to kill the medic on the other team before your medic's dead, and your team shoots more people before they shoot you, you're going to do well. How people do that is going to be the variable. How much effort people put in is the variable. How much experience people have is the variable. What they think is important for their position, and they're not willing to take feedback on what they could be doing better is important. Because I'll be more than happy to go around and tell everybody where Brisbane people resupply from, and how they attack somewhere and how they defend it. I've got no problems doing that. If anyone asks, I'll be more than happy to help. But then how that's taken on board and how they decide to use that information is important, right? So I feel like there's not much after playing. I worked it out. This will be the 19th international tournament or Nats I've played. After that many, the baseline is you just do as well as you can with the information and the team that you got. And if you get good feedback and you take it on board and improve your play, then, you're on your way to being successful, I think, is a summary. So I don't feel like I can genuinely have anything to hide. I'm not playing medic, I'll tell you that. But if I end up playing some ammo games and some scout games and some commander games and some heavy games, and we figure out what we like best, that's just what we're going to do. But that's because we've got Brisbane people playing in Brisbane, and they have played lots of games there, and they could potentially play another position. And I would love to add some value playing an ammo game to see what I could do during a tournament. It'd be interesting for me personally to say, well, if I could potentially play a 3-hit better than somebody else, but I can actually add value playing something like ammo, where I could potentially add even more value. Maybe it's better I play ammo, right? But yeah, we'll see. You'll have a fair idea after probably the first 6 to 8 games as to what we're going to end up doing. And we will go from there.
All I can think, to be totally genuine, is there's not a single Laserforce player with any less than a year of experience who doesn't think that you and Taipan are coming out on 3-hit in finals. I just don't think anyone's going to believe a word either of you two say until they see it.
Never say never. Never say never. I think, look, if it makes sense and we've tried other stuff and it just hasn't been effective, well, we're going to play whatever is most effective.
Right. What's most effective?
Whatever. That's it, man. If we end up playing an extra 3 or 4 minutes every game, as in if we could get an 11 or 12 minute elim and we end up playing 15 and winning by 2,000 points, well, or maybe we lose by 2,000 points. Clearly, we're changing something, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to stick to what works. But if I'm playing resupply and we're having really good success with that lineup, and we don't necessarily think it's going to need to be tweaked, well, if we're going to save 30 seconds or be 30 seconds better or worse, we'll just go with that. Right? So, I'm really excited to see how it plays out. Like, we've got 8 full teams. Like, every spot is locked in, flights booked, people are coming.
Mm-hmm.
So there's people I haven't seen for a long time. There's people I haven't seen for a couple of years. I'm disappointed you can't come, and a lot of your other colleagues or players from Loveland. It would have been amazing to see everybody from that. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to getting everyone over here and just having an awesome week and playing lots of laser tag. And trying to, like I said, soak it up as best as I can, because I don't know how many more of these things I've got.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think many people have reverence for Brisbane, the Brisbane legacy, the Brisbane site, and want to see it. It's unfortunate that the site's unfortunately gonna gone after this, right?
Well, not there.
Or am I wrong?
Well, that's complicated now.
Oh,
Apparently,
I didn't mean to open a can of worms that I shouldn't have.
well, no, there's. Well, we won't be hosting another one.
Yeah.
In my mind, just put it that way. This will be the last. I joked around with it in Auckland, like, the final boss.
That's how it feels to people.
Trying to be like, by the time it gets to go around, everybody else that will potentially want to host. Maybe it goes to Europe one year, Syracuse, wherever else. Yeah, I 2030 Brisbane. No, it's not happening. It's just no chance. So I can confidently say this will be the last.
We'll be back with the podcast in just a moment. Wanted to take a quick ad break to just let you know, please support the channel to join the fight against bullying and support our sponsors, RelicsMerch.com, to get some awesome Laserforce swag. And with that, we'll be right back to the podcast. Thank you for listening.
And in saying that, would I still be playing in 5 years' time? That's highly unlikely as well.
Like, what you're saying.
Who knows?
Yeah.
Like, if my shoulder keeps popping out, I've got a 14-month-old kid now. Like, I can't pop it out once a month and not be able to carry her around and do stuff for her, and I might be forced to stop playing. Right. So, I mean, Traj played until his 50s, and I still don't know how he did for such a long time. I have a new appreciation for getting older and seeing what he did for such a long time. Like, for me personally, maybe there is a 2030 Nats in Brisbane by some miracle. I probably just won't be involved.
No, I hear you. We just shouldn't expect that there's going to be, because unfortunately, everything does change, and there's new beginnings and endings to things.
Mm.
And there is life outside of Laserforce, actually. And I'm an example of that,
Well, when I moved here in 2003, I never thought I'd ever not be playing. But the last 2-3 years, it's just a shame COVID happened, because I think we would have had at least a couple more in the US. We would have been able to play, and there would have been more people involved and new players getting experience. And, maybe we would have 10 teams coming to Brisbane,
Maybe.
But anyway, we've just got to do the best with what we've got. We've got 8 teams. It's Brisbane. It's 5-6 weeks away now. It's not far.
Yeah, it's coming up.
Super pumped, and I'm looking forward to seeing what you've got cooking as well.
Absolutely. So look, I know you got to go. I want to ask you one final question that I think just kind of hits at the heart of what I think most people would want to know. So give us whatever you want to say. Brisbane has had a track record of success, and you've been a huge part of that over the last couple of decades. What do you think has set Brisbane apart?
I don't know why Brisbane has had so many good players. Like, there's just so many. There's so many. When I moved over, like I said, 2002, I would say was arguably one of the craziest amount of people who at that particular moment in time would have been considered an elite player. And then if you think about it, though, like us playing 2010 onwards, there wasn't that many Brisbane proper players that we could drag with us, right? But whenever anyone came to play Brisbane in Brisbane, there'd always be plenty of people coming out of the woodwork, and there'd be someone on, you call them the D team, and they would be a really good player. But look, it's just got to be the fact that, good players grow bad players into good players. The only way you survive is to get better. Call it an evolution of laser tag, I suppose. And if you keep showing up, like not for 2 or 3 months, but I'm talking like 18 months, 24 months, and you keep showing up every Monday in Brisbane, there's always been a couple of like amazingly good players. And again, it goes back to the thing I said, the first thing, if people are willing to take the feedback on board, do the hard yards, chase the resets, be aggressive, be passionate, be hungry to learn. And I know it sounds nerdy. It's like we're talking about playing, NFL or NBA stuff. But for us, it is the same thing, right? If you want to be really good, you've got to give it 110%. Mm-hmm. And there's been people that have come along that have gone, I love playing laser tag. I'm willing to get yelled at. I'm willing to take it on board. I'm willing to get better and understand how I can improve things. The people... And it's happened a little bit. I won't name names, but there's certain people that are playing where I think they've got great potential. And I'll give them live feedback on how I think they could be doing something differently or better or worse or whatever. And sometimes they take it personally, like I'm just giving them a hard time. I'll try and explain, hey, I just think you could be doing this. I think you've got great potential. And they just don't, it just doesn't resonate with them the right way. So it's kind of like, well, okay, well, I'm just going to pump the brakes and let them do what they think is right, and hopefully they figure it out themselves. But that just goes back to the point of, are you willing to take feedback on in different formats and different ways and look at it like, yeah, okay, I could have done that better and I could be doing that differently. And, well, hey, maybe they just genuinely think what I'm trying to give them feedback on, they don't need feedback on. Maybe I'm old, maybe I'm washed, maybe I'm not giving them the right feedback anymore. But you could take that with a grain of salt. But I honestly think it was just, as soon as someone got really good, somebody else would try and get really good, and everyone else tries to get really good, and it's just like a pyramid scheme almost. Like everyone just gets carried along, and it's just how it works. I mean, look at Loveland, right? Like you guys had. How would you describe Loveland in 2015? And you compare you guys now, like you have a really, like you have the Calebs and yourself and Desire, and everyone's kind of just floated up with everybody else, right? Because after a Nats, you go, oh, I can start doing this differently.
Right.
Same thing for you guys. Yeah. And like, in 5 years' time or 10 years' time, and you look back at who the best players are at that point, at that current time, like there'll be conversations going on. I wonder how blah 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 would stack up with another player in the past. And I'll admit I've thought about this in different parts along the track, where I would love to have a time machine where 36 people at arguably their absolute peak could just get teleported back to a moment in time where you get to spend a week, make a team, 6 different teams for a day, just play, and then another day and another day and another day. And then eventually I think you'd kind of wash out who was arguably one of the better players or not. And that's just fascinated me to no end. And it's disappointed me at the same time too, because I just know it's not possible. But
right.
It's not like Tragedy, for example. You can still throw him into a Brisbane arena now. He hasn't played for a couple of years. Mm. And he will still finish well above average in terms of the score, accuracy, resets, maybe a couple of meta kits. And he would be playing at about 50% of what he would have been able to play at his peak, right? And he'd still be phenomenal. Mm-hmm. I think that's sort of just a good example of, right, once you're really good at something, you sort of do keep it. But yeah, I guess I've kind of got a little bit segued off that. But I think... it would have been amazing to be able to compare players. But I do hope that in 10 years' time, there's someone just absolutely stomping on everybody. And it's like, oh, man, I wonder how they would have matched up against someone from Brisbane in 2010 or 2012. Yeah, so that's always fascinated me. But It's just a shame we can't do it because Peter can't come out of retirement. Fredo wouldn't. I'm 41. And there's been plenty of awesome people in the US that aren't playing now as well that, at their peaks would have arguably been good as a lot of people as well. So, some food for thought. I think about that every now and then I'm just, like I said, I get disappointed that it won't ever happen. So
it is true. If only we could have time machines. There is so much out of all that you just said that I want to respond to, but out of respect for time, I want to wrap up here and send you on your way,
Well, thank you, sir. No, I'm always happy to share my time and my thoughts on things, and I'm happy, if we could plan it properly, post-nats, we could do something, and then, if there's anything else you want to unpack off the back of that.
It would be my pleasure.
I'll probably be pretty forthcoming with how I thought things went, and ultimately I'm responsible for organising this thing. So hopefully it all goes smoothly and everyone has a good time, regardless of the outcome. But yeah, I'd love to catch up with you again in the future if you want to.
I would love that. So for you, is there anything that we can plug for you?
Not really. Just as long as anyone who's said they're coming has booked a flight, show up. Show up. The teams that have been formed, I'm really excited. We've got people coming who play zone predominantly. We've got someone else coming, a couple of people from Europe. I mean, obviously Luce is already in Brisbane, so it doesn't count. We've got the 3 US teams. We've got the Auckland team coming up. We've got 3 full Brisbane teams. Yeah, I'm frothing. I'm super excited, and the fact that I can drive to laser tag and not have to fly somewhere.
Absolutely. that is so fun, being the home team and just getting to drive to your house. Yep.
Yes. No. So no, you don't have to plug anything. I just want to thank you. I know you're doing a lot of stuff in the background. I don't even have to ask you. You just, again, I should thank Guy Next Door as well. And Beans has been working on the scheduling stuff. And yeah, it's been, and Marcos, who's organised the brand, the logo. Yeah, I'm so thankful for everyone's help with this. A lot of that stuff is well above my pay grade / skill set. So, like I said, what you did in 2024 was phenomenal.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, I can't wait to see it coming.
Rusty, you're welcome. I love this stuff just like you love it, and we're all here passionately making it together.
Love it. Well, thank you, sir, for your time and having me on.
Here's my outro here. So please support the show by giving to our Patreon. If you want to be a guest, reach out to me in person or leave a comment. If you want to be part of the Laserforce community, join the LF Tournament Discord. And that's it. Thank you so much for coming on, Rusty. It was a great time. Would love to have you on again.
Thanks so much.
All right. See ya.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to ForceProSports. Subscribe to the channel and get cool perks by supporting our Patreon. Play Laserforce and become part of this era's next great sport.